In the last 5 years, MoYu has released over 40 3x3s, yet despite this, they are all very similar. And I want to find out what has actually changed with so many different cubes, by looking at the most obvious advancements to the much smaller and more technical changes. And if these cubes are truly all the same, it could fundamentally flaw the strategy MoYu is using to sell their products, because who wants to buy the same cube over and over again? But first, let's take a look at the most obvious change, being the tensioning system. Now, if I filmed this video just 2 months ago, MoYu would be in a very different position here, because their system has not changed in over 4 years. However, thanks to the release of the WRM version 10, they have finally implemented a new dual adjustment system. If we compare this to one of their older cubes, you can see how completely different it is. And this is something that gives me hope that they still have new and exciting ideas. What's great about this one is that you only use one tool, which works clockwise and counterclockwise to adjust both settings. And this is now becoming the norm on most cubes, as it is also being used on 3x3s like the Tornado as well. But next up, I have a little game to play, and this could prove a very dodgy trick that MoYu are using to disguise how small their changes are. So I want you to take a look at the yellow side on these two X-Man cubes, and it should be obvious which one's which, with this being the version 2 and this being the version 3. Now doing the same on two Diane cubes, and once again the difference is obvious, with the change to the core design being visible from the outside. Next, if we do two Chi cubes, whilst this one is a little bit harder, you should still be able to spot that they are different. And you might think that this is just because of the colour of the internals, yet on the Tornadoes, the piece design is different, and you can see that. Whilst on the Diane cubes, they clearly do not look the same, despite both being primary. But finally, let's look at two MoYu cubes. And guess what? You can't tell them apart, unless they are turned over, because the logos are not the same. And this hopefully clarifies my point. I think that MoYu deliberately changes their logo on each cube so that if you buy a lot of their 3x3, you will be able to tell them apart very quickly, despite the externals not being different at all. Which brings me on to the next thing that I want to try. So here I have 7 of their cubes, and I'm going to attempt to guess which one is which, whilst blindfolded. The aim here is to find out if the difference is noticeable just from how they turn. But before that, I've got to move them all around so I don't know what each one is. Okay, first up. Right, I tried this cube recently. I know that this is the WRM version 10. And next... Right, this one feels old. It feels bad. It's got to be the GTS 2M. Thirdly... Ooh, this is blocky. It's pretty slow. And so for that reason, I'm going YS3M. Alright, next one. Okay, this is the WRM 2021. I know this cube. It's pretty bad. It's way too flexible. It's not at all controllable. I know that's the WRM 2021. On to the next cube now. Alright, this one's fast. It has good corner cutting. And so I'm going to say WRM version 9. Second to last cube now. Alright, this is the RS3M 2020. I know this cube. It feels very distinct. And lastly... Okay, well, I know that the last cube has to be the RS3M version 5, but this is quite fast. So it's probably more of a Waylong, but I mean, I have to go RS3M version 5. And whilst I did get a few of them correct, some were completely off, which hopefully emphasises how MoYu are releasing cubes at such a rapid rate that they aren't making each one different enough for them to all be easily identified, which makes me want to investigate how different the piece design actually is between their 3x3s. Because surely if they all feel very similar, the internals will be the same as one another. And after taking out a corner and an edge from 4 of their cubes, it actually surprised me how many differences there were. With some having a much larger corner piece foot and some being a lot thinner. One of the cube's edge is smooth, whilst the others have a notch. 2 of them have a pattern in the side, and 2 do not. And the torpedoes on the edge pieces are different, with 2 being wider and 2 being longer, which made me think that these are actually not at all the same as one another. But then it hit me. If you really think about it, something becomes obvious. It seems like when they are making a new product, MoYu pick and mixes the features that they would like to include. For example, they could take a wider edge piece foot, a textured pattern on the side, and a fatter corner piece foot, which would include parts from the WRM version 10, YS3M, and WRM 2021 to make a completely new cube. But that new cube is actually the RS3M version 5. So whilst technically I've made a different product, in reality it just uses a combination of existing parts within other MoYu cubes. And this is what made it so hard for me to tell them apart earlier, because they definitely didn't feel the same, but there wasn't enough difference for me to be able to confidently say which one was which without any doubt. But what do you think? Are these cubes different enough for MoYu to continue producing a bunch of them each year? Or do they need to slow down and make sure each change is actually noticeable? Leave a comment to let me know, make sure to drop a like, and consider subscribing if you found this interesting. Thanks for watching.